Musical Talk, the UK independent musical theatre podcast.
My name is Nick Hudson. I don't know what I'm doing on this mixing desk. I still don't know how to use it. I'm sitting here with John Sweeney. Hi, John. How are you?
Hi, guys. Hey, everyone. Good, Nick. How's it going?
Oh, fine. All things considered. What the heck do we talk about now? Because this is getting so difficult these days, isn't it? Trying to come up with... Because I like new shows. And even though we're kind of sort of coming out of lockdown-ish... Mm-hmm. You know, seeing new shows is difficult, and I'm not a big fan of watching new shows online. I like the atmosphere and the overpriced gin and tonics. You know, that's what theatre's all about, isn't it?
Well, there's absolutely... I mean, there's not even old shows to talk about. I mean, we can't even talk about old shows. There's basically nothing to talk about. Bye. Yeah,
that's it. Goodbye. So, forgive me, we have the plumbers in, so if there's noise going on, that's why. It's not... The house isn't taking off or anything, but thanks to the wonders of Zoom, we are joined here by John over in New York.
Hello again.
I just kind of came up with an idea of talking about the last show we saw, because chances are I haven't talked about the last show I saw for a very long time. I don't think you mentioned it at all on the podcast, because we don't really talk about Broadway. So I know what the last show you saw was, John, I think, but tell everyone out there who doesn't know.
So the last show I saw was the new, very controversial revival of West Side Story at the Broadway Theatre, and I know the date because we shut down a week later. It was March 10th, 2020.
Almost a year ago now. How does it feel?
Weird. It feels weird. It feels like I don't know. It's like we are paused. We're just in the in a pause position.
I mean, it seems strange that I was just celebrating Christmas, and Easter is about fewer than 3 weeks away now, isn't it?
It's crazy. It's crazy. I know, and you said it's almost a year. It's been a year. I mean, it's now over a year since I've been in a theater, because we saw the show on a Tuesday night, and the city was shut down the following Sunday may have been the last official shows, and then everything shut down. I had a friend who saw part 2 of The Inheritance, I guess, that Sunday, and that was it. There was nothing after that.
So you saw here's the plumbing noise, by the way, listeners, so don't worry about that. I'll try and mute myself as much as I can when John tells us about West Side Story. John, tell us about West Side Story.
Well, I don't know. Okay, so everyone knows this was a very controversial production by the director Ivo van Hove, and I think people, based on his works before, pretty much went in with a preconceived idea of what was going to happen. And sure enough, when the reviews came out, they were all over the place. Some really liked it. Some really didn't care for it. And when you went online, it was a full drawn battle. There were people who loved it. There were people who absolutely hated it.
But is this one of the, not the problems, but it's like, I mean, did people compare it to the Oklahoma that was also happening at the same time? Because Wokelahoma, as I believe people called it, that you kind of have these shows that are so museum pieces and you're not allowed to do much with them. So the minute someone does come and try to do something groundbreaking with them, it's almost like you're messing with the holy text, isn't it?
Well, that's a big issue. Listen, I come to theater with a love of opera, with a love of Shakespeare, and we've seen updated productions. We've seen reconceived productions of, everything from A Midsummer Night's Dream to, Wagner. So it wasn't going in and seeing a completely different take on West Side Story was not so shocking to me. I mean, it was shocking just because we're not used to seeing it in a theater, in a Broadway musical setting. We're not really used to seeing, a completely rethought, cut down, pared down, lots and lots of video West Side Story.
So was it good? Did you hate it? Did you love it?
No, I actually really liked it. I don't know whether I loved it. I know that the original West Side Story is always going to be there. We're going to get revivals of it, from now until doomsday. So I know that West Side Story is always going to be around in its original form. And to tell you the truth, the last time we got it was, for me anyway, was that dreadful Arthur Lawrence revival back in 2009 or whenever it was. And I would rather go see something like this, even if parts of it make me angry, than go see a revival where I just sit there going, I can't stand this. It's so boring.
So it must be quite refreshing, really.
I thought it was. I really thought it was wonderful. He really. If you've ever seen it, if any of the listeners have ever seen his productions, he relies a lot on handheld videos that have that are footage happening as the show is going on, and there's also pre-filmed stuff, and they incorporate it and they act around it, and it's basically an empty stage where except they had two set pieces, the candy store and the dress shop, all the way in the back, and the only way you could see them was with the handheld video cameras, and people went crazy over that. They were like, are we watching a movie or are we watching a show? What's going on? One
often feels that so much about shows that one sees nowadays, don't you?
What do you mean?
Well, so much is projected. It's the lies.
Yes.
The lines are blurred between, I guess, reality and even less reality. Was it set in the modern day, or was it still set in the 50s?
No, it was set in current days. I mean, the gangs were the Jets were a mixed gang. So it wasn't even a white versus a Puerto Rican gangs. It was really an American gang versus the immigrant gang.
Interesting.
So I thought that was an interesting take on it. I mean, like I said, the cast was multiracial on the Jet side. It was all pretty much Hispanic on the Shark side.
But no songs in a foreign language this time.
No. They didn't change any of the dialogue. He didn't. I shouldn't say they. He. Von Hove didn't change any dialogue. He didn't change any song lyrics. Of course, the big controversy that I'm sure everybody else knows, was he cut "I Feel Pretty." Took it out completely. And I'll be honest with you, as much as I enjoyed the show and the song, it didn't really bother me in this production that they took it out. The whole thing was we were out on the street 110 minutes after it started. No intermission. It just flew through to the end of the show.
Were you still moved at the end, or were you? Yeah. Okay, so it still worked as it's meant to.
And it was a very stylized production. So they moved away from realism as much as they could. Like during Tonight, instead of Maria and Tony singing on a balcony, Tony, as he sang, and this is going to sound so weird, but it really worked. He just ran in circles around her on the stage, in this huge stage. He was just running around, and then gradually each gang came out and took hold. The Jets took hold of Tony, and the Sharks took hold of Maria, and kept pulling them away and pulling them back. And I thought it was really effective and very dramatic, and something usually it's just on a fire escape, and that's all you have.
It's almost like they were making conscious choices to make absolutely everything different, but it still worked.
I think so. I mean, because the text is always going to be the text. It's like Hamlet is always Hamlet, whether you said it in the Middle Ages or you said it, 20 years ago. I mean, the text always is the same, and I think it's the same with West Side Story
and Romeo and Juliet, obviously.
And Romeo and Juliet, sure.
What was the orchestra like? Did you get any? Were they visible, or were they off in a room somewhere?
No, they were in the pit. Oh gosh, I don't have my program, so I couldn't even tell you. But it seemed like a pretty large orchestra. They didn't rescore it; it was still the original orchestrations. That's and nice. I'd say musically, it was really well performed. Unlike the Oklahoma, where they rearranged all the music. They didn't do that with West Side Story. It was the original 57 orchestrations. And
I wonder if they were brave enough to put the original lyric in G Officer Krupke in at the end. Do you think we'll ever see that? No.
Krupp You. It was Krupp You. Same as, they, like I said, they didn't change or update or add anything. He just let the text speak for itself.
And did Sondheim see it? Do we know what he thought of it?
I you know what? I can't remember. I'm sure he did. He never really says anything negative, so I don't even know if you could, I know he was thrilled that they took out "I Feel Pretty."
Okay. Maybe he wants them to fix the upbeat on somewhere as well, just to make him happy and stop moaning about that. But yeah, I mean, what were you? If that were to be the last show you ever saw, heaven forbid, would you be happy with that?
Well, I'd be happy with seeing West Side. If West Side Story was the last show I ever saw, and like you said, my God, I can't even imagine. Yes, I would be happy. I love West Side Story, and I found the production was different and moving, and I was never bored. When we saw I went with a couple of friends when we saw the revival and the last revival. We came out of the show, and I said, maybe the show is dated and it's done. It didn't land at all. Nothing. It just felt very tired and trying to shock and trying to be interesting. And it just, for me and for the rest of us too, the four of us that went, we didn't really care for it.
But you like this one more?
I like this one much more. Actually, the summer after I saw the revival, the Lawrence directed revival, I saw it again at the Stratford Festival up in Canada, and that was a traditional production, and it was 10 times better. So maybe the name of the game is the director, the writer of the book might not always be the best director for a show. Sometimes
too much power can, I mean, it proves that sometimes if you have a formula that's worked for 60 years or whatever, how long this show has been on for, probably, must be 60 or not 70 years.
It's like 60, 57 it came. It was like 64.
Theatre is all about moving forward, I think, and kind of developing the technology that we have available and the art form. And it proves the strength of West Side Story as a piece that you can now kind of shift around with it. And it was always that was always what one did with opera and what one did with Shakespeare. But now more people are doing it with musicals, aren't they? Because of did you see the Oklahoma as well?
I did see the Oklahoma, which I liked. I liked an awful lot, but it's funny. I really enjoyed it. It made me think. It was fascinating. But when people told me how they hated it, I totally understood. It really, that went so completely in another direction. The West Side Story, at the end of the day, was still recognizably West Side Story. There were moments in the Oklahoma where it felt like, even though it was the text and the lyrics and the music and even it felt so far away from the original show. And like I said, I really liked it, and it was very different, and it made me think about Oklahoma in a different way. But I saw the show twice, and the first time it really disturbed me, and the second time, since I knew what to expect, I was able to relax and enjoy it a little bit more. But the first time, it really threw me. The West Side Story, I never felt that way. I mean, maybe because I've seen Von Hove's, I've seen other plays by him, directed by him. So I knew modern dress, very stark scenery, lots of projections, lots of live video. So I knew what to expect going in. The Oklahoma, though, was like having cold water suddenly thrown in your face.
So the director of Oklahoma wasn't doing anything new for him. He was just putting out his usual box of tricks. Sorry, not Oklahoma, for West Side Story.
I mean, if you want to call it that, yeah, I guess so. It's sort of like the John Doyle actors playing their instruments shtick.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
That'll be next. I'm sure it's been done somewhere. West Side Story act musician version.
Oh yeah, good luck. Good luck getting cast members who can play that score.
Yeah. So that was the last thing you saw. What will be the first thing you go to?
Oh gosh, I honestly don't know. I'm just getting ready to go to a movie for the first time in over a year, and it feels, like it's a giant project to do that. I'll go see anything. I really, I'd love it to be a big, no holds bar gala, wear back concert extravaganza, but who the hell knows at this point?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously you got lots of things that, as we do, that are kind of possibly announcing an opening, but it's so risky, isn't it, to kind of book anything?
As we were talking a couple of days ago, the Shaw Festival announced in their big festival season this summer they were going to do Gypsy, and I said, I don't think that's going to happen. And sure enough, they canceled. After printing up their big, luxurious program book that they sent out to all the people who've gone up. So I think it's tremendously risky. I think we're still on a day-by-day
Oh dear Lord.
You know, what's gonna happen? You know, you're gonna think, not even day by day, you're gonna think, good God, what are you gonna throw at us today?
Yeah.
I don't think anything is gonna happen until, you know, they reach herd immunity and whatever they say, 80%, 85% of the population is vaccinated.
But also, what some people don't realise is that it's all very well everyone being able to mix and you know, carry on as normal, but shows have to essentially press the reset button and rehearse all over again and do tech get-ins and all this stuff. So it's going to be another 3 or 4 months until shows can open properly to the public.
Easily. I can't even imagine the logistics going into what it's going to be like to, you know, to press the restart button and start all over again. Like I had said to you the other day when we were talking, I think at some point there's going to have to be a leap of faith on the producers' parts, and they're going to have to.
Unless your show is, of course, leap of faith, when don't bother.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you're going to have to take a loss for a while before you can start making money, if you really want theater to come back. And I think at this point, everybody wants it to come back.
Yeah, I mean, especially New York and London. I know they're the
sure.
But people are complaining. Oh, everyone's always talking about London and stuff. And well, yeah, you know, we absolutely appreciate the touring shows and the smaller shows, but New York and London is the lifeline, isn't it, of the
sure,
the
and
shows.
It's one of our biggest. It's one of our, other than tourism, I think it's one of the biggest money makers in the city.
Yeah, and it brings the tourists in, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Like I said, shows like Phantom, shows like Les Mis, shows like Chicago. I mean, of course not Les Mis anymore, but shows like that at this point run on tourism. I mean, I saw Phantom back in '87. I haven't really. I saw it once after that, but every New Yorker who wanted to see Phantom has seen Phantom. Their grandkids have seen Phantom at this point. So who's going to go but tourists?
But you don't think Phantom's going to return to New York, do you?
I don't know. I think it was announced as canceled. I would have to check.
Okay.
But anybody else? I don't know. I don't remember. You're getting a new production of Phantom, or tweaked.
We're getting a cheaper production, I would think, is probably the more honest way of putting it, and a more reliable production. So I think they're probably, I like it when creative entities look at downtime as periods to kind of think, well, how can we make any changes? Can we, we've been blessed with this kind of time off to sit down and rework things. I know Lloyd Webber's not going to rewrite any of his music, sadly, but they're looking at, can we make the theatre more comfortable? Can we add more legroom? They're renovating the theatre, and with that, they're kind of bringing back the traditional architecture of the auditorium, as opposed to having the fake architecture plonked on top of the the original proscenium arch. So that would be nice. I'll go and see it to see what they've done with it, because I quite enjoy the theatricality of Phantom, not so much the music. And the same with Les Mis. We have a new Les Mis as well. So it's interesting that whether or not due to the pandemic, we will never have these iconic productions ever again, probably.
Well, I can't see them reviving. I can't see them reviving Phantom or Les Mis in exact replica productions of what they were back in the 80s. Like we did, like in 1977, we got The King and I on Broadway with Yul Brynner, and it was a replica of the 1950 production. Same sets, same kind. They did it with My Fair Lady as well. I think after a while, even though you want to see what it was like in 1950 or 1960 or 1986, things change, and like you said before, everything moves on, and I wonder how the 1985 Les Mis would play now.
Well, it's like the West Side Story argument. I'm sure the reason people enjoyed that one was because it was interesting, and it wasn't a museum piece. Like when I saw Chorus Line, the one time I saw Chorus Line, that was just the same production, but that's because it's just a line of people. There isn't really much you can do with it.
No. You can update costumes if you want to, but they don't even do that anymore with Chorus Line. I mean, Chorus Line is now a period piece.
Unless you look at the film, which is when they changed everything and made it very strange.
Which is also a period piece too, yes. At this point.
I want to thank you for that, John. That's very interesting. The show I saw last, we talked about a year ago on the podcast, and it's announced it's coming back to London, which is very exciting, and it's kind of a show that's very, very me. I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about, John.
Could it be? Is it another one of those 80s films into a stage show?
Yes. Of course, talking about Back to the Future, which you obviously saw that when it came out, John.
Yes, I am that old. I saw the film originally in 1985 or whatever it was.
Did you ever think that something that would be possible to do that on stage of that scale?
No, not with the. I mean, now certainly. I back then, no, it would have been completely beyond capabilities.
And when you watch that film, I presume you've seen it again, not recently, but
yeah,
at some point, does it say this could be a musical to you?
Yes, I think it does. I do. I think it's got very strong characters. It's got a great story. There's a good conflict in the story. So I think, you always have to be careful with, I think this is perfect for a stage show, because it doesn't always, things that seem like they're perfect don't always work perfectly on stage.
This did, thank God. I went all the way to Manchester to see it. And anything like that feels like an event. When I went to Stratford to see Matilda, it's kind of that. It's so nice to go somewhere completely different to a theatre I didn't recognise. It does. It's like when I went to Broadway to see you. It does it enhances the situation, doesn't it?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I love when I go to the theater in London, because it is being, I mean, now it feels like a second home, but it's always an adventure going to see something in another place, always.
And this played at the Manchester Opera House, which was lovely, and it was everything you wanted from a Back to the Future musical, with a couple more kind of modern additions. The sad thing is it's been a year, so I can't really remember much about it, but I remember kind of specific moments involving some very clever projection mapping, blended with screens, blended with moving scenery. So everything was coming together to form the climactic point. And yes, the car does everything you want it to do. It also has one of the best entrances that it even probably rivals most of Jerry Herman style entrances when it comes to a lead character. But the songs are very, very good. I would think if they're bringing it back and they treat Manchester as a kind of preview out of town tryout, I guess you could call it.
Sure.
I hope they cut some of the ballads, because that's always a problem with shows, isn't it? When you get kind of, let's do a musical, it needs to have 12 ballads in it. And I think, I hope they kind of trim that down, and it would cut about 15 minutes off it, I would think. But for its theatricality and the excitement in this film has its fans, doesn't it? And they're almost...
Oh, absolutely.
They've always been hounded to kind of not do a remake, but kind of where's Back to the Future 4 or something. And with the fact that we have Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis and Alan Silvestri involved in this musical, they are... The brand of Back to the Future is treating it as, this is the remake that you've been wanting, but we're doing it in such a clever way that, I hate the phrase that you've never seen it before, but this was a way that we've never seen Back to the Future before.
So did they just adapt the screenplay and the story to the stage, or did they change plot situations and did they add and take out stuff, or is it basically the movie put on stage with songs and effects?
Well, they got rid of the terrorists, which is a good sign. That's kind of dated and wouldn't play very well now. And they made the car talk, so it had this kind of like Siri or Alexa, shush, Alexa, go away, kind of thing, which was kind of cool, because it kind of made, this is actually something, and it added humour to it as well. And it kind of, everyone in the audience was able to relate to that. But I think the story's so strong, they probably didn't feel the need to, to mess with it. They just enhanced it with songs, which can really bring out the emotion of a moment. Sure. Can also drag it down too. Yeah, so I think I seem to remember there's a bit of drag moments, but there was you know, the mayor had a great song about, you know, one day I'm going to clean up this town and all that kind of stuff. So he had lots of kind of iconic moments were turned into even bigger moments, and there's lots of slapstick.
Good. All right.
And I went with two friends of mine who are fans of the film. Sorry, three friends of mine who are fans of the film, but we only had two of them on the podcast for our review. And they're massive. You know, they have costumes and little models of the DeLorean and stuff. You know.
Okay. So they're the harshest critics.
Yeah. For those who are not in the room and didn't hear John roll his eyes, he did roll his eyes at that point.
No, I did not. I did not. Dear listeners, no, I did not roll my eyes.
He had something in his eyes.
Yes, I did.
Tears. But they were everything from getting references that I completely missed, you know, sort of bits of the set were appearing on the film and thing. Do you remember when we saw Beetlejuice, John, and
yes.
and set pieces were getting rounds of applause and rounds of applause, what's the word?
Rounds of applause.
Rounds of applause. That was like that for this. I think it has that kind of same mega fan base. The car especially, but just kind of rooms and like when the courthouse appeared for the first time, that got a cheer.
Oh, sure. Well, those are the iconic, you know, people remember, you know, people remember that for the movie. You know, I'm sure they applauded the tower as well.
Yeah. Well, absolutely.
You know,
The clock tower, I will go on record because I haven't seen much theatre since, well, any theatre since really, is one of the cleverest bits of staging I've ever seen in my life, how they do that scene.
Oh, great.
You've got, I seem to remember Roger Bart, who played Doc Brown. Absolutely amazingly. He had a great song that opened Act 2, which was all about the future. So they were able to kind of put a bit of Back to the Future 2 into it, whilst not...
Oh, all right. Okay, that's clever.
Yeah, and it's kind of his moment to have a really fun kind of comedy song, not linked to any plot, but kind of saying it would be fun in the future if this happened and that happened and this happened. And I've been to the future and I've seen this. And so they had kind of everyone coming on with the kind of the 1985 version of what we think the future will look like, all kind of clothing, which was...
Well, don't I remember? Yeah.
I don't. But the clock thing, I seem to remember, I'm possibly wrong because it's been a year. I seem to remember Doc Brown was on stage and then he kind of disappeared into the set, and then there was a projected version of him climbing up the clock tower and getting zapped by lightning, and then he appeared again, and you know, it's just kind of really clever use of projections, and the bloody thing was moving across the stage at the same time with screens behind it also moving at the opposite direction, so it seems like it was going, but it wasn't moving because the car was not moving, but it felt like it was, because, you know, all this kind of mad you know, insanity. And you know, a show has money spent on it when each whether it's projections or not, it's hard to tell because it's, you know, they were that good, but I think it probably is projections, but each curtain at the end of each act had a different message on it. End of Act 1 says to be continued, and the end of Act 2 says make like a tree and get the hell out of here, whatever the line is. Which is quite cute.
What Biff says.
And you also had themed audio in the lobby of the theatre. So they had the radio station playing as you were going in hits from 1985. And then during the interval, they had the same radio station playing hits from 1955. So they've thought about ways of kind of really bringing you into the world.
That's great. That's a really great, and people don't realize that sort of ambient stuff really enhances how you enjoy a piece, even if you're not aware of it. You enjoy it more.
It's playing in the auditorium as well, and it gets the audience really up and running, up and ready for the show. And I don't know how they did it, but on the preset there was a clock, and it said location Manchester, date 15th of March 2020, time 2:27 or something. And when it hit 2:30. That show started, and it was like everyone was getting so excited for this countdown. And yeah, I'm getting shivers just thinking about it. And I you know, there were shows that I can't wait to see again. And I think I mentioned in our chat we had before we recorded the cheap seats for this show are in the weekdays £19.55p, and in the weekends £19.85p, which is a very clever marketing thing for the 1955 versus 1985, which is really clever.
Yeah, we're not going to get that when it comes here. Trust me on that. They won't be clever.
No, they'll just be greedy.
Yeah. Has it been announced that it's going to go to the West End?
Yes, it's there. The marquee's up. It's going to the Adelphi, ready for the summer, which is really exciting. I'm sure Broadway will be next, but who the heck knows what's going to happen with Broadway, because I think there seems to be less of support stimulus over there than there does here.
Support stimulus government-wise? Yeah. I mean, although they just, part of that big...
well, now your government has changed. Who knows? Now you have a human being in charge. I mean, who knows what might happen? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and please, let's not make... I'm not good on this. I do believe that there is money for the arts actually built into the latest stimulus. So we'll see what happens as far as that goes. But no, we don't have the government interest that you guys have, because they don't really appreciate theater in the country the way they do over there. They should, but they don't. I haven't heard anything about it even transferring here, I guess, because it was so early. Yeah.
You were at the tryouts,
and I was at the tryouts, and I was at practically the last weekend it was running. So we were so lucky to have seen that show. Another show we should probably mention, because I introduced it to you, and we've never talked about it publicly, I think, is Six. Which
I can't wait! After you played me a couple of those songs, I went out and got the CD, and I love it. And I know a handful of people who have seen it here. They saw it in New York before everything shut down, and they absolutely loved it. And I believe the lockdown occurred
the day it was meant to open.
It was supposed to be the opening night. So I do think Six will be back. I mean, I'm pretty sure we're going to get Six back. And so I can't wait. I can't wait to actually go see it.
In a way, it's a show that should be back, because it can be done as a concert. It can be done with social distancing, because they don't really move. They just kind of stand there, which is it's very clever. They didn't know this was going to happen, but it's very... people call it 6 Feet Apart, the musical. And I hope, do you see it being a massive hit there like it is here?
It seemed to have been gathering momentum. There were people there right from the start. I mean, I don't know if they've been offering any sort of, repeat business incentives like they used to do with Rent and, shows like that, where you could buy the front row for $20 or whatever. I don't know if they're doing that.
For $6.
If they were smart, they would do something like that, because it seems like a kind of show, from what I've seen online and from clips that I've seen online, the audiences just love it. So
I watched a documentary on YouTube this morning about Wicked, and how it was the first show to really put female strong empowerment at the front stage and centre. And it was the kind of show that brought a lot of teenage girls to musicals. Do you believe that's true? Because that's what Six has also done. And every so often there seems to be a show that does this. But I thought, it can't be Wicked. That can't be the first show to have done that.
Well, it's been a very long time since I was a teenage girl. So, no, I as you were saying, there have been other, excuse me, I'm shifting. There have been
That's
other
shifting,
shows.
Listeners.
There have been other shows on Broadway and in theater that had very strong female leads. I mean, I think with Wicked, you had a very potent combination of strong leads and a brand that everybody in this country knows, in The Wizard of Oz. So I think it was a combination, but I can't agree. I mean, there have been plenty of strong female characters prior to Wicked.
But they said from then, Frozen, the film, was very influenced on Wicked, not only through Idina Menzel, but Let It Go is very similar to Defying Gravity. And of course, Wicked and Avenue Q were up against each other at the Tony Awards. And, it's a show about female sistership and not so much about a love relationship, which was nice. And also 9 to 5, it's very, you got lots of three, but that was a film originally, so it's not, the musical wasn't doing anything new. But certainly Six has really hit that market, the same market that Wicked did 15 years ago, I think. And I think if you can grab that target audience, I think, because that is predominantly the young Broadway crowd is girls, isn't it?
I don't know. I would say that's, yeah, I would say with a show like that, it probably is. It probably most definitely is. And I do think the show is the type of show that young girls would enjoy.
Yeah.
So I do think it will run. It's just, now it's just a question of getting things up and running. Have they announced anything official with you guys yet? I mean, is anything announced?
Well, I mean, things keep changing. I mean, only today, the Curve Theatre Leicester, in partnership with Disney, said we're not bringing Beauty and the Beast here, because they've done Disney have redone that production for the UK, which is amazing. It was going to do the Curve Leicester, the Bristol Hippodrome, and then a theatre in Northern Ireland. They cancelled the Curve, and it's now going to premiere in September, I believe, at the Bristol Hippodrome, and then go to Ireland in 2022. Which is weird to think about that date. There's things moving that late, but I don't think people mind now, because there is kind of hope at the end of the tunnel. I think we're so used to kind of cancellations and things. No one's really angry. It's just kind of, okay, do what you got to do, as long as we can rebook and or get refunds. And I think that's what's been really interesting, is theatres have generally been seen as no refunds, you can't rebook, once you paid. But now, I saw on Today Tix, if I wanted to see Back to the Future, you can change your ticket to 24 hours and up to 24 hours in advance of the show.
Well, that's good.
I hope that carries on, because there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to change a date.
Well, it's funny. I have tickets. Being a theater fan, I had tickets with friends for a couple of things, and we had tickets to see The Minutes, and we got a refund on that immediately. We had tickets to see in June, I think, of last year, May or June, tickets to see the revival of Assassins at CSC, and we did not get a refund on that. We were told as soon as the show reschedules, we'll get you in and you'll see the show, which of course now, as this thing drags on into a second year, who the hell knows. And my dates for The Music Man,
this is so funny.
Scott Rudin's not opening his pocketbook on refunds for that. I've been rescheduled, I think, 3 times. I'm now slated to see it, if I am not mistaken, in May of 22, or maybe the fall of it's early 22.
God. Maybe
February of 20. I mean, it's inconceivable at this point.
Yeah.
I don't even know if the revival is going to happen if they keep pushing it off. Like I said to you the other day, Jackman is going to go off and make more movies, And
then you got trouble.
Big trouble.
Yes. But I mean, certainly stuff to look forward to. Certainly more positive than the last time we talked. So thank you very much, John, for chatting to us.
I'm so glad we could do this.
Yes, and I will speak to you soon. I'm sure you'll hear from John soon, and we will be in the theatre soon.
Yes. Look forward to talking to you soon, Nick. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
For more information about Musical Talk, please visit our website at musicaltalk.co.uk. You can email us at feedback@musicaltalk.co.uk, listen to past episodes on iTunes and YouTube, and follow our social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.